Welcome to the Monica Kelly Light Body Podcast. Introducing your host, Monica Kelly.
Hello, this is Monica Kelly, and I'm continuing my background story so you get to know a little bit about me and what I will be speaking about in my podcast and YouTube channel as it develops. So, the first one I talked about my upbringing into Eastern philosophy, graduate school, Western psychology, hypnosis, and energy healing. And I started to talk about the story of how I came into psychic awareness. And where I left off was I had arrived at the lodge in Yosemite late at night, exhausted. My car was full of bags for the ceremony, not only the suitcase that I brought for the ceremony and my clothes that came from the other suitcase, but also a lot more items that I bought during the day for different purposes. And as exhausted as I was, I started to take the bags out of the car and unpack them into the hotel room. Now, mind you, for those of you who are psychic or fifth dimensional, I wasn't quite to that consciousness yet, so I was not doing things that I'm doing now, like grounding myself or clearing spaces or making sure that I was in a safe space, clear from negative energy. I was just hearing voices and following them, quite frankly. And I really felt strongly that I was being divinely guided, and I really needed to listen to what the voices said. And I really felt like I needed to learn from the experience, and that there was something there they were trying to teach me. So I hear this, start taking everything out of your car, get it organized in the hotel room. And I'm thinking, man, I have not rested in forever. Remembering that the night before last, I only got a couple hours of sleep. So definitely semi-altered state of consciousness. Barely found that lodge, and I'm unpacking everything for the hotel room. Finally, they wanted me to organize it because I had some things I needed to throw away. I had some prayers that were not positive, negative prayers or negative ideas that Key was saying, I want you to burn these up. We're going to do a burn ceremony. You're going to burn a lot of things. So I went through this process where they really wanted me to organize what everything was and situate all of the negative items in the corner and kind of psychically barricade them off from me. So by the time all of that got finished, it was pretty late at night, and I finally crashed, wondering if I would be woken up to channel some information in or write something down, because that had been happening the last 2 weeks, or if I would have some crazy dream or whatever. Exhausted, I found myself asleep, and in just a few hours, I think it was 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember hearing a chorus of people talking as if I was in council. And if you don't know what that word means, in council in the astral dimension, I will be talking a little bit more about that as we progress here. But safe to say, you have a team of angels, you have a team of masters, you have a team of galactics too, as I've come to find out. Lots of people that are assisting you in fulfilling your life purpose and your journey on the earth. And when we go into altered states or when we go into trance, we can contact them. And in this case, I was definitely altered because I had not been sleeping well and because I was just altered, altered state of consciousness for sure. And I remember waking up that morning and feeling like there's 4 people in the room. I could hear all of their voices quite distinctly. Ashtara was there, and I remember being woken up to, oh, this is too hard for her. Let her sleep. This isn't fair, and then I remember a very loud masculine voice coming through, who I've come to know as Big Bear, and he's a Native American tribal leader and shaman also. And Big Bear said, no, she's strong. This is fine. This is part of her test. And I heard Key there as well, and a couple of other voices. And also, like I said, some negative voices as well. So a lot was going on. A lot of psychic phenomenon was going on. And I remember getting up saying, you guys, I can hear you. I can hear you. It's not like I get the impression that a lot of times council is talking and they don't think that the humans can hear them. But in this case, I was eavesdropping and could hear them quite clearly. So I got up and they let me know what was the agenda for this day and the next day. The next day was going to be the fire ceremony. And one of the things that Ashtara said was, you've been so busy healing other people, you haven't looked at your own past lives. You haven't done a reading on yourself. And I remember thinking, well, first of all, I've never done readings. I just hypnotize people and they do their own readings for themselves. I'm just facilitating a hypnotic trance process. And I have been hypnotized before. I've been hypnotized 4 times. All of those interesting experiences, and I have had past life regression, and I do remember some of my past lives. But Ashtara said, well, we need you to understand your whole background. We're going to tell you everything, and we're going to help you remember some things about you and remember some past lives today, and we're going to be speaking to you, and it's going to be happening to you consciously. You're not going to be going into a trance state. You're not going to be going to see a healer. You're just going to keep listening to us, and we're going to take you through this process. And I thought to myself, well, that's cool. And she was right. I hadn't really looked at my own self. I knew I had past life something, but I didn't really know what. And she basically explained to me, this is pick up the pendulum, and this is how we're going to do it. And took me through a process where I knew how many total past lives I had on the earth, how many of those past lives were negative, how many of those past lives were positive, and was told that of the negative past lives, through the work I had done prior, this is how much I had cleared. And I think I was like around of negative 200, I had cleared about 12 points, so whatever that is. But that they were going to take me through some more experiences so I could clear more, and that over the next couple of weeks, I could remember things would be coming back to me. And every time I had a memory of a negative past life, I would gain consciousness about the purpose of that life, how it applied to my mission in this time period, and it would act as a mechanism for clearing my karma or any residue, emotional, residue from those experiences. And I said, okay. So I started to read myself, and I learned that I had a total of 400 past lives on the earth. 200 were negative and 200 were positive. So I had no idea that it was that many. And then I started to ask some other questions about my galactic origins. Now, stepping back 5 years back, I had gotten interested in extraterrestrials, the alien shows on TV. I had read some of Dolores Cannon's books where she regressed people and they went back to remembering when they were on crafts. I had been listening to a lot of speakers on YouTube about extraterrestrial information. And during my second hypnosis session, I received some information that while I had been on Earth for quite a long period of time, 400 years apparently, I was not necessarily just human, that I had other origins. And those of you that are going to be following this podcast, and you know who you are, believe you're moving in the direction of fifth dimensional consciousness, believe that you have seen a craft or have some association with a species, whether that be Palladian, Sirian, Orion, Andromedus, whatever it is in the metaphysical community in terms of the galactic communities or the Galactic Federation of Light. So I had been following all of that for years, and it occurred to me to ask, do I have galactic origins? And of course I get the answer back, yes, you do. And this is how many lifetimes you've had on Sirius, and this is how many have been positive, and this is how many have been negative. And like I said, I've done 4 regressions with healers. And so I got some of this information in those regressions. And I also did a life between life session. If you follow that hypnosis type, where you go up to talk to counsel in between life. So I had already done a lot of investigation into my subconscious about what my origins were. But in this case, here I am alone in one of the most beautiful places in the world, I'm sure, Yosemite National Park, holding these conversations and getting very detailed and specific information about my own self. And that was pretty much blowing me away, specifically. And the next part of the story is that they had me go into the park, and it was really interesting because when I got into the park, I noticed that all the negative voices were quieted. And later on, my son said, yeah, it's like there's a force field over Yosemite. And I was like, yeah, I could sense that when I moved into the valley, into the sacred area, that I was protected and I was shielded in a way that I didn't feel protected and shielded outside of the park or in the cities. And I was guided to the picnic site where I was to have the fire ceremony. And one of the first questions I was very anxious to have this fire ceremony because in my mind, I wanted to purify and cleanse myself. And I felt like, wow, here I have been practicing for 5 years and apparently I haven't been doing it right. I want to get on the right path, and so I sit down inside of the park trying to figure out, well, where can I burn? In case you don't know, I'm sure you know, California is in a drought in 2015, severe drought, and they haven't been allowing any fires in any of the parks in California. I'm also frequent to Kings Canyon, Sequoia National Park, and we haven't had campfires for 3 years up there. So I go to talk to the ranger, and he says, well, there is this one picnic area with fire pits, and you can burn there. If you do a small fire, you should be fine. So I was gathering my information up where to go, and then I have this thought to ask, oh, do you want me to do the ceremony today or tomorrow? Because I know I'm leaving tomorrow evening, which is Friday. And I get back a very clear tomorrow. Today is not the day for the fire ceremony. We have other lessons to teach you and other things to show you. So I said, oh, okay, that was surprising to me because I was wanting to get to it. But that was the crescendo. That was the end of the experience for me, not the midway point. They asked me to take a drive in Yosemite and also to buy crystals on that day. So here I was off driving around the park. And there's this one part in Yosemite where there was a fire, I think 5 to 7 years back maybe, and it's all burned out, and it's called Forista. I actually was looking for the crystal shop, which is in the valley, missed the turnoff somehow, and I end up driving past the Forista Grove, and I get this very strong intuitive hit that this is an important place. I need to pull over. So I took the side road into this burned out piece of property land on the park, something I'd never done before, and I know to pull over and get out, and I hear Ashtar start talking to me, and she says, this is important. We want you to remember. And I get out of the car, I'm looking at this burned out property, and it flashes before my eyes, my clairvoyant eyes, a memory of me being a Native American woman married to a tribal leader who was Big Bear. And there was a land dispute with the white men, a deal gone bad, and it had caused a friction in a war. And while the men were out hunting, the white men had come and attacked the village and set fire to the village. And as I was the wife of the tribal leader, showing my bravery and strength, I came out and I was trying to put the fire out, and I was calling out to people, and I was saying, go back, go back. And I remember having a skirt or some kind of material where I was trying to put the fire out. And then I remember a push, and I remember being burned. And I started to cry. Just like my clients when they're experiencing a past life regression and they're having a really strong recollection, they get very emotional. I was completely conscious, middle of the day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but it was just as real. I was crying and crying and crying. And then I remembered that Big Bear came back and found that the women and children that were left behind had either been taken or died in the fire or died in the battle, and felt the grief of losing the wife, felt his grief of losing the wife and family. And I just sobbed. I sat there and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, and I remembered that whole experience. And it was quite phenomenal. I had taken myself through my own past life regression with my guides completely consciously. And over the next few weeks, through dreams, through meditation, and through paying attention to my body, and I'll talk more about discovering current life or past life issues and sides of the body in another podcast, but I started going, is that a past life? And what is the origin of that? And then I would meditate, and I remembered all kinds of things. And that is the end of this podcast for now, and I'm going to continue the story in the next podcast, so stay tuned. Thank you for joining me, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to Monica Kelly Lightbody. For more information on downloads, workshops, and private sessions, please visit www.monicakellylightbody.com.